Harlan had lived on the edge of the quiet ranch valley for most of his life. The land was wide, open, and peaceful. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, fed the horses, checked the fences, and cared for the animals like they were a part of his own family. People in the nearby town often said he was a man of few words, but those who truly knew him understood that he was gentle, patient, and kind in a way that made others feel safe. He rarely raised his voice, and he never ignored someone who needed help. That was simply the kind of man he was. Ilara, on the other hand, lived a very different life. She came from a busy town where people worked hard, but rarely stopped to listen or understand each other. Ever since she was young, she had been taller and stronger than most girls her age. Her height and broad shoulders often made strangers assume she was tough, unfriendly, or cold. She wasn't any of those things. She was simply a woman who had learned to protect herself from unkind comments and curious eyes. Because of this, she spoke directly, worked tirelessly, and refused to show weakness. People sometimes called her stubborn, and she didn't fight the label. It was easier to let them think she was unbreakable. Only her family knew how warm her heart truly was. When Ilara learned that seasonal ranch work was available near the valley, she didn't hesitate. Her family needed extra money, and she felt responsible for helping them. So she packed her belongings, tied her long dark hair in a simple braid, and set off toward the open fields where she hoped to find a few weeks' worth of honest work. She didn't expect anything special to happen there. She didn't expect to meet anyone important. She only wanted to work hard, earn what she could, and return home. But life sometimes surprises us when we least expect it. On her first day near the valley, the sun was bright, and the breeze carried the fresh scent of grass. Ilara stopped to rest near a wooden fence. Wiping her forehead, that was when she heard sudden shouting from behind a row of trees. A horse was running loose across the field, kicking up clouds of dust. Several ranch workers were trying to stop it, but the animal was frightened and fast. They were afraid to get too close as the horse reared and twisted wildly. Without thinking twice, Ilara dropped her bag and ran toward the commotion. She had grown up around animals and knew that sometimes fear made them act in ways that looked dangerous, even though they simply needed someone calm. As she reached the field, the workers stared at her, unsure of what she was planning to do. Ilara ignored their worried looks. She moved slowly, keeping her eyes soft, her hands relaxed. She spoke a few quiet words to the horse, using the same tone she used with her younger siblings whenever they were scared. The horse snorted and stomped, but it didn't run away. Instead, it hesitated just long enough for Ilara to reach its side. With steady hands, she touched its neck and whispered again. The horse's tense muscles softened a little. In just a few seconds, it calmed down enough for one of the ranch workers to slip a rope around its halter. Everyone stared, stunned. Harlan, who had been walking up from the lower pasture, saw the whole thing. He stopped a few steps away, watching the tall stranger standing beside his horse like she had known it for years. The workers around her were still catching their breath, but she looked completely steady. Harlan stepped forward. "You handled him well," he said softly. Ilara turned toward him, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. She expected a commanding voice or a judging look. But his expression was calm and respectful. His voice carried no harshness, only quiet appreciation. "He was just scared," she replied, brushing dust from her hands. "Anyone could have done it." Harlan shook his head gently. "Not anyone. Fear spreads quickly. But you didn't let it touch you." His words were simple, but they stayed with her. She wasn't used to receiving thoughtful praise. Most people commented on her size before anything else, as if that defined her entirely. But Harlan had noticed her calmness, not her strength. One of the older workers, who had seen Harlan grow up, walked over and told her that she might find work at the ranch if she was interested. Ilara agreed to come by the next morning. She thanked them and turned to collect her bag. Before she walked away, she glanced once more at Harlan. He was still looking at her. Not in a strange way, but with quiet curiosity. She nodded at him, and he returned the gesture with a small smile. That night, As Alara settled into a small rented room near the town's edge, she couldn't stop thinking about the gentle way Harlan had spoken. There was something peaceful about him, something she hadn't felt around many people before. The next morning, she arrived at the ranch earlier than expected. The sky was still pale, and a few birds chirped near the barn. Harlan was already there, carrying hay bales to the feeding area. When he saw her, he set the bale down and greeted her with a polite nod. "You're early," he said. "I like starting before the heat," she answered. "That's a good habit." She noticed he didn't look surprised by her size or her strong build. He didn't make a joke or give her a long stare. He simply treated her like any other hard-working person. It felt strange, but in a good way. Harlan showed her around the ranch, explaining what needed to be done. Feeding the horses, clearing the barn walkway, checking the fences for loose boards, helping move supplies. His instructions were clear, and his voice remained calm the entire time. She appreciated that. Many men tried to speak loudly or act tough when giving directions. Harlan didn't. He spoke like someone who believed in steady teamwork instead of showing off. Throughout the day, Alara worked with surprising ease. The tasks were tiring, but she didn't complain. She lifted heavy sacks of feed, helped guide a pair of young horses to their paddock, and repaired a fence post that had been leaning crooked for weeks. The workers watched her with amazement, whispering that they hadn't seen someone work with both strength and care like that in a long time. Harlan noticed, too. He didn't say much, but he observed quietly, appreciating her dedication. Every time she finished a task, he gave a respectful nod or a simple, "Good work." His compliments were never loud or exaggerated, yet they felt sincere. During the midday break, they sat under the shade of a tall tree. Harlan offered her a bottle of cold water. She accepted it and thanked him. For a moment, they sat in silence, listening to the wind rustling through the leaves. "You work hard," Harlan finally said. "Most people slow down by noon." Alara shrugged. "Work keeps me focused. I like it." He looked at her carefully. "You remind me of someone who's had to carry a lot." She didn't respond at first. It surprised her how quickly he had understood that about her. Most people only saw her strength, not the responsibilities she carried inside. "Maybe," she said quietly. "But everyone carries something." Harlan nodded, accepting her answer without pushing further. He respected her silence, and that alone told her more about him than words ever could. By the time the day ended, Alara had earned a place among the ranch workers, but she had also gained something far more unexpected. A gentle glance from a man she barely knew, yet somehow trusted. She didn't allow herself to think too much about it. She was not someone who dreamed easily, but as she walked back toward town, she replayed one moment in her mind, the quiet smile he had given her when she calmed the horse. She didn't know it yet, but that simple smile was the beginning of something she had never imagined, something slow, sincere, and powerful enough to change the way she saw herself and the way she understood gentleness. Alara settled into ranch life more quickly than she expected. Each morning she reached the ranch before most of the workers arrived, breathing in the cool air that hung over the fields. The sounds of the ranch, horses snorting, birds calling, the gentle creak of old wooden fences felt strangely comforting, as if the land itself welcomed her. Harlan was always there before her. No matter how early she came, she found him already working, fixing tools, feeding animals, checking the water supply. She couldn't tell if he started that early every day or if he simply sensed she would arrive and wanted to be present. He greeted her with a small nod, sometimes a soft, "Good morning." And then they started their tasks without unnecessary words. Over the next few days, Harlan's family began noticing her presence. His mother, a kind woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile, came out of the house one morning, carrying a tray of tea and biscuits. She introduced herself to Alara, thanking her for helping around the ranch. "You've made things easier for Harlan," she said. "He works so hard. It's good to see someone strong by his side." Alara felt her face warm slightly. Compliments were rare for her, especially compliments that weren't about her size but her effort. She smiled shyly, and said she was simply doing her part. Harlan's younger sister, Mina, was the opposite of him, talkative, cheerful, and curious about everything. She followed Alara around, asking countless questions. Where she came from, what she liked to eat, how she learned to calm horses, and why she tied her hair the way she did. Alara wasn't used to so much attention, but Mina's kindness softened her. The young girl didn't look at her the way many people did. She didn't stare in surprise at her height or speak with hesitation. Instead, she treated Alara like a friend, something Alara hadn't felt in a long time. Day by day, the connection between the ranch and Alara grew stronger. She helped repair fences, barn doors, and feeding troughs with her steady hands. She watered the horses, combed their manes, and even taught the younger workers how to guide nervous animals without frightening them. The ranch workers came to admire her for her patience as much as for her strength. They joked that she was like a shield, nothing scared her, nothing shook her. But inside, Alara sometimes felt small, unsure, and tired. She didn't let it show. She couldn't. She had responsibilities back home, and she didn't want anyone to see her cracks. Still, something about the ranch made her feel a little lighter. Maybe it was the open land. Maybe it was the quiet mornings. Or maybe it was the way Harlan looked at her when she wasn't aware. He never stared, never studied her the way others did. His looks were different, soft, thoughtful, almost curious, like he wanted to understand her without prying, like he saw something in her that she didn't show anyone. One afternoon, after hours of lifting hay bales, her arms were tired and her back ached. She leaned against a wooden post, catching her breath. Harlan quietly appeared with a water jug and handed it to her. "You should rest," he said. "You've done more than enough." Alara shook her head. "I can keep going." "I know," he replied with a gentle smile. "But you shouldn't have to push yourself all the time." No one had ever said something like that to her, not in that calm, caring way. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. She took the water, drank a few sips, and looked out across the fields. "You work even harder than me," she finally said. Harlan shrugged softly. "It's different. I grew up here. The ranch is part of me, and I'm just passing through?" she asked. Not sure why the question slipped out. He shook his head. "You're here. That matters." His words touched her more than she expected. As the days passed, the two of them fell into a natural rhythm. They moved through tasks side by side, refilling grain buckets, guiding cattle, hauling supplies to storage sheds, sweeping the barn floor, and sometimes sitting together for a short rest. Even when they didn't talk, the silence felt peaceful, not uncomfortable. One evening, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the land. The animals had been fed, the tools cleaned, and the workers had left. Alara stayed behind to help Harlan finish stacking wood for the night. The warm glow of the sky made everything look softer, almost golden. As they worked, a gentle conversation started between them. "You're different from how people describe you," Harlan said quietly. Alara paused, stacking another log. "How do people describe me?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Strong, stubborn, intense." "Those aren't very gentle words," she said with a half smile. "No," he agreed. "But people forget to mention the important things." "Like what?" "Like how patient you are. Or how much you care about every task you do. Or how you notice when an animal is frightened before anyone else does. Or how you stay calm when other people panic." Alara stared at him, surprised. She had never heard anyone speak about her like that. She didn't even know he had been paying such close attention. "No one talks about me in that way," she whispered. "They should," he said simply. Silence settled between them again, but this time it was warm, filled with a quiet understanding. After that evening, their bond only grew stronger. Harlan's mother often invited Alara to join them for dinner. She made delicious, homemade food, warm soups, soft bread, simple dishes that tasted like comfort. Alara sat at the wooden table, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging. Mina shared stories about school, dreams, and silly jokes. The family laughed together, And every time Alara joined in, she felt her heart loosen a little more. Sometimes Alara caught Harlan watching her when she laughed. His eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, as if seeing her happy gave him peace. But it wasn't just quiet moments that brought them close. The ranch had its share of difficulties. One morning, a young colt refused to eat. The workers tried everything, but the animal trembled in the corner. Alara slowly approached, crouching beside it, whispering until its breathing steadied. Harlan watched her with deep respect, admiring the gentle strength she carried so naturally. Another day, a heavy wagon wheel got stuck in the mud. Several workers pushed until their shoulders strained. But it wouldn't move. Alara stepped forward without hesitation, planted her feet firmly, and pushed with all her might. The wheel broke free, splashing mud everywhere, including on herself. Everyone burst into laughter, including Harlan, who helped her wipe her face with a clean cloth. Their hands brushed for a brief second, sending a strange warmth through her chest. Little by little, Harlan became the one person she trusted without trying. He never made her feel small for her emotions or large for her strength. He accepted her completely, exactly as she was, and she found herself opening up to him. Slowly but honestly. She told him about her family, the responsibilities she felt, the times people misunderstood her because of her size or her serious nature. Harlan listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. "You deserve to be seen clearly," he said once. Not through people's assumptions. His words stayed with her long after the sun went down. As the days blended into weeks, everyone on the ranch noticed something new in the air. A warm connection, gentle but strong, forming between the stubborn giant woman and the quiet rancher. They worked together as if they had spent a lifetime learning each other's rhythms. And even though neither of them said anything aloud, both could feel the truth growing quietly inside them. Something was changing, something real, something neither of them had expected when they first met, and that gentle beginning was leading them toward a moment neither would ever forget. The storm arrived without warning. All morning, the sky had been clear and bright, with only a few scattered clouds drifting lazily across the valley. No one expected anything unusual. Everyone continued their work normally, feeding animals, repairing tools, and preparing for the evening. But by afternoon, the wind changed. It grew stronger, colder, and carried a strange heaviness that made the animals restless. Horses snorted nervously, cows paced inside their pen, and even the dogs began barking at nothing in particular. Alara felt a strange uneasiness in her chest as she tied down feed bags near the barn. Harlan walked out from the storage shed, looking up at the darkening sky. "Something's coming," he said quietly. Alara followed his gaze. Heavy clouds gathered fast, rolling across the sky like a giant gray blanket. Within minutes, thunder rumbled in the distance. "How bad do you think it will be?" she asked. "Bad enough," Harlan replied. "We need to bring the animals in before the rain hits." Without wasting another second, they rushed into action. The workers scattered across the ranch, calling out instructions. Mina ran to help her mother close the windows of the farmhouse, while other workers prepared the stables. Alara immediately began guiding horses inside. Some animals listened, but others panicked, pulling against their leads. She used her calm voice, whispering the same gentle words she had used before. And slowly, one by one, the horses relaxed and followed her. The wind picked up, whipping dust into the air. Thunder cracked louder. The sky grew dark, as if evening had arrived early. Harlan rushed past her carrying a toolbox. "The fence behind the pasture is loose. If the storm hits it, the animals could get out. I need to fix it." Alara didn't like the idea of him going alone. "Let me help," she said firmly. "No, you're needed here with the animals," he said, but his tone wasn't harsh, it was worried. She shook her head. "There are enough workers here. I'm coming with you." He paused for a moment, looking into her determined eyes. Then he nodded, because he knew she wouldn't change her mind. They ran together toward the pasture as the first drops of rain began to fall. At first it was light, but quickly it turned heavy, cold, and fast. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a deep roar of thunder that made even the strongest animals tremble. When they reached the far fence, Harlan's worry proved true. A large section had come loose, hanging dangerously. If the wind caught it, the whole fence could collapse. Harlan knelt down with his tools, but the wind was too strong. Alara immediately stepped behind him, using her body to shield him from the worst of the gusts. "You don't have to do that," he said loudly over the storm. "I'm not leaving you out here alone," she shouted back. Her voice was firm, and he didn't argue again. Together, they worked in the rain. Harlan hammered new nails into the wooden posts, while Alara held the fence steady. The storm grew stronger around them, but they refused to stop. Water soaked through their clothes, mud covered their boots, and their hands trembled from the cold. At one point, lightning flashed so close that the ground shook beneath them. Harlan looked up and said, "We need to finish now." Alara pushed her weight against the loose section, steadying it with all her strength. Harlan hammered the final nails, securing everything in place. When he finished, they both stepped back, breathing hard. "It'll hold," he said. Before they could rest, a terrified cry came from inside the pasture. A young calf had gotten stuck in a shallow ditch, its legs tangled in loose roots. The poor animal was kicking wildly, unable to climb out. Alara and Harlan rushed over. The rain made the ground slippery, and the calf struggled harder when they approached. "I'll go down," Alara said. "It's too risky," Harlan warned. "I'm heavier. I can keep my balance better," she insisted. He hesitated again, but she was already climbing into the ditch. Mud clung to her boots, and rainwater pooled around her ankles. She reached the calf slowly, murmuring gentle words. The animal still shook with fear, but her calm presence steadied it. "Easy, easy now," she whispered. With careful movements, she freed its legs from the roots. The calf tried to stand but slipped. Harlan leaned over the edge and reached his hand down to help. "Push it up slowly," he instructed. Alara used her strength to lift the calf's body while Harlan pulled from above. After a few tense seconds, the calf finally scrambled out of the ditch and ran toward the shelter. Safe at last. Alara took a deep breath of relief and climbed out. She was soaked, covered in mud, and shaking from the effort. But the sight of the calf running to safety filled her heart with warmth. Harlan stepped close. Rain dripped from his hair onto his face, but his eyes were full of concern. "You're hurt," he said, noticing a small cut on her arm where a branch had scratched her. "It's just a scratch," she replied, but Harlan ignored her words. He gently took her arm in his hands, tilting it so the rainwater washed over the cut. His touch was feather-soft, so careful it almost surprised her. She looked up at him, and for a moment, the storm felt distant. No one had ever handled her with such tenderness. His fingers brushed her skin lightly as he checked the wound. His eyes stayed focused, not judging, not doubting, just caring. And in that quiet moment, something inside her chest loosened. For years, she had carried the weight of being strong, stubborn, unshakable. She had faced every challenge alone. She had learned to protect herself from harsh words and cold looks. But now, standing in the storm, she felt a softness she wasn't used to, a gentleness she had never allowed herself to accept. Without planning to, without even thinking about it, she whispered the words that rose naturally from her heart. "I've never known a man this gentle." Her voice was so soft that it almost disappeared in the rain, but Harlan heard it. He looked up, meeting her eyes, and then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't need words. Quiet, warm, and full of something deep. Something that told her he cared about her more than he could explain. Something that told her she wasn't alone, not anymore. Alara felt her breath catch. Not from the storm, not from exhaustion, but from the truth she had just spoken out loud. Harlan didn't say anything in response. He didn't need to. His smile said everything. They stood there for a moment, rain pouring down, wind swirling around them, yet the world felt strangely calm. When they finally walked back to the ranch, side by side, their shoulders touched now and then, Each small brush sent a quiet warmth through them both, stronger than the cold storm around them. By the time they reached the barn, the storm had begun to fade, but their understanding had grown stronger than ever. The workers rushed around, checking the animals and securing loose equipment. Mina ran up to them, relieved to see they were safe. Harlan's mother thanked Alara again and again for helping, but Alara barely heard their words. Her mind kept repeating the moment in the rain, the gentleness of his touch, and the smile that had made her heart feel lighter than it had in years. Inside, she knew something had changed between them, something real, something quiet, something she couldn't ignore anymore. And Harlan knew it too. The storm had tested the ranch, but it had also brought them closer, closer than either of them had expected. And in the days to come, that quiet closeness would shape everything that followed. The storm passed, but its effects stayed on the ranch for days. Fallen branches covered the fields, muddy water filled the small ditches, and some of the tools had blown far from their places. Everyone had to work together to clean the mess. Yet, even though the ranch looked rough, there was one thing that felt strangely peaceful, something between Alara and Harlan. The quiet moment in the rain had changed everything. Alara didn't speak about it, and Harlan didn't bring it up. But something new lived in the way they looked at each other. When their eyes met, there was a softness there. Something unspoken but deeply understood. Every time Alara remembered the gentle way he had held her arm, she felt warmth rise inside her chest. And every time Harlan looked at her, he remembered the whisper she had spoken, the whisper that had stayed in his heart since that moment. They worked side by side every day, cleaning the pasture, checking the fences again, helping the animals feel safe after the storm. The ranch slowly returned to normal. But inside both their hearts, nothing was the same as before. One morning, Mina came running toward Alara as she filled water buckets. She looked excited, her hair bouncing as she ran. "Alara, Mother wants you to come inside for tea before you start the second round of work," she said. Alara wiped her hands on her trousers. She wasn't used to being invited inside so often, but Harlan's mother insisted kindly. When she entered the kitchen, she found the older woman pouring tea into a cup with a gentle smile. "You've been working non-stop," she said. "Sit, dear. Rest a moment." Alara hesitated but then sat down. The warmth of the kitchen, the smell of tea, and the soft sunlight through the window made her feel peaceful. Harlan's mother watched her for a moment before speaking softly. "My son cares about you," she said. Not in a dramatic way, but in a warm, gentle tone. Alara nearly dropped her cup. I don't know what you mean," the older woman smiled knowingly. "I'm his mother. I've watched him grow from a boy into a man. I know his quiet ways. He doesn't talk much, but when he looks at someone with that softness, it means something." Alara felt her heart beat faster. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to talking about feelings. She wasn't used to believing that someone might see her that way. "I'm not sure he should care about someone like me," Alara said quietly. "I have responsibilities. I have family waiting for me. I came here only to work, and yet you have given this place more than work," his mother replied gently. "You bring strength, life, and calmness. And Harlan sees that. He sees you." Alara lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond. The older woman touched her hand lightly. "Don't push away something good just because you're afraid. You deserve kindness too." Alara left the kitchen with a heart full of thoughts she wasn't ready to face. Later that day, she worked by the barn, lost in her own mind. She didn't notice Harlan watching her from a distance. He could see the weight on her shoulders. He had learned to read her expressions even when she stayed quiet. That evening, when the sun turned orange and the sky softened into gold, Harlan walked toward her as she finished putting away a saddle. "Alara," he said softly. She turned. "Yes? There's something I need to talk to you about." Her heart tightened. She nodded and followed him outside. They stopped near the wooden fence overlooking the fields. The air was calm after the storm-filled days. The sunset painted the land in warm colors. "I know you've been thinking a lot," Harlan began. And so have I. Elara felt her breath catch, but she stayed silent. Ever since that storm, something changed, he continued. I've always admired your strength, your courage, your heart. But that night showed me something more. It showed me how much you care, even when you don't say it. And it showed me how much I care about you. Elara looked away, not because she didn't want to hear him, but because his words touched a place inside her she had kept hidden for so long. Harlan, she said slowly, I don't know if I belong here. My family needs me. They depend on me. I can't abandon them. And people don't always accept someone like me. I don't want to bring trouble into your life. Harlan stepped closer, not too close, just enough to let her know he was there, steady and patient. You're not trouble, he said softly. You've never been trouble. You bring strength where it's needed most. You bring calm where fear rises. You brought comfort to this ranch when we needed it. And you brought something into my life I can't explain, but I don't want to lose. His words were so sincere, so gentle, that she finally turned to face him. I don't want to lose you either, she whispered, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. Harlan's eyes softened even more. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, two people who had spent their lives carrying others, guiding others, standing strong for others, finally allowing themselves to be vulnerable. Elara, Harlan said quietly, I don't want you to choose between your family and your happiness. If you stay, we'll support your family together. If you go, I'll help you as long as you need. But, he paused, gathering courage, if you want it, I want a life with you, a real one, a future. Her breath shook. She wasn't used to hearing such gentle promises. She wasn't used to someone wanting her. Not for her strength, not for what she could do, but for who she was. I've never had something like this, she said softly. I never thought someone like you could care about someone like me. Harlan stepped forward, but still respectfully, still gently. Someone like you? He repeated. Elara, you are the strongest, most loyal, most kind-hearted woman I've ever met. You are not less. You are not too much. You are exactly right. Her eyes grew warm, and she blinked away emotions she hadn't let surface in years. The wind blew softly around them, as if the land itself waited for her answer. Finally, she spoke, her voice shaking but certain. If you want a future with me, then I want it too. A soft smile touched Harlan's lips, the same gentle smile she had seen in the storm. The one that had stayed in her heart. He reached out slowly, giving her time. When she nodded, he took her hand. Not tightly, not firmly, just gently. With the kind of tenderness she once believed did not exist for her. That small touch felt like a promise. Over the next weeks, the ranch grew lively again. Harlan told his family about Elara's decision. They embraced her with warmth and joy. Mina announced excitedly that she would finally have the strong sister she always wanted. Elara wrote letters to her family, explaining everything with honesty. They were surprised, but they were happy for her. Proud that she had found a place where she was accepted and valued. Her younger siblings sent back drawings of the ranch animals she had described in her stories. Days turned into weeks, and the connection between Elara and Harlan deepened. They worked together in the mornings, shared meals in the afternoons, and talked under the stars at night. They didn't need big gestures or loud declarations. Their bond grew quietly, naturally, like the steady growth of new roots in rich soil. Then, one evening, as the sky glowed pink and the horses settled for the night, Harlan walked with her to the same fence where they had spoken before. This time, he carried a small wooden box. Elara looked at him with surprise as he opened it. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring, nothing fancy, but crafted with care. The kind of ring made by a man who valued meaning more than show. Elara, Harlan said softly, will you stay with me? Will you be my partner in this life, on this land, always? Her eyes filled with warmth. No fear, no doubt, only truth. Yes, she whispered, I will. And when Harlan slipped the ring onto her finger, the ranch around them seemed to glow with quiet happiness. Mina cheered from the porch. Harlan's mother wiped tears from her eyes, and even the animals seemed calmer, as if they sensed something good had settled over the land. Ilara, the woman who believed she was too stubborn for softness, too strong for gentleness, finally found a place where she was understood not just for what she could do, but for who she truly was. And Harlan, the quiet rancher with a patient heart, found someone who matched his strength and softened his silence. Together, they built a life rooted in trust, respect, and quiet love. A life where the stubborn giant bride could whisper her heart without fear, and the gentle rancher could smile knowing she finally believed she deserved tenderness. Their story didn't end with grand roads or loud celebrations. It continued in simple mornings, shared laughter, warm sunsets, and peaceful nights on the wide, open land. A life built gently. A love that grew honestly. A bond that would last strong and steady, like the ranch they called home.